Welcome to another episode of Axe of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your host, Kat Bailey. Joining me, as always, my lovely co-host, Nadia Oxford.
Hello, Kat. Good to have you back. I can't remember what we said happened last week. I just remember I think you dissipated, or I don't know. But I'm glad to see you're with us still.
Up in a puff of smoke.
Pew!
Pew! Also joining my equally lovely co-host, Eric Van Allen.
Hi, hello. We're all back together again. After a little bit of time apart, we always come back and talk about the greatest sicko game known to man. I'm really excited for today's episode because Victor and I are going to be firmly aligned on the sicko boundaries. The sicko squadron has never been more firmly aligned.
It's so back, baby.
And straight from the editing bay, it's our pal, Victor Hunter.
I don't know about you guys, but I miss when it was called Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Wait,
I don't understand what that means.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Took me a sec.
Yes, this week we will be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X, which now has a definitive edition. The original game came out almost 10 years ago, and Axe the Blood God did exist at that time, and we did talk about it, but we didn't talk about it in as much depth as we could. But now this is like the definitive review of Xenoblade Chronicles X here on Axe the Blood God, and Victor is here to help walk us through it. All of that is coming up in just a moment. We'll also be talking about my GDC experiences, where I went to a bunch of cool panels about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's battle system, Metaphor Refantagio. I tried some games at the Xbox Indie event. I'll be talking about all of that. We'll be talking about a potential Persona 4 remake. We'll be talking about how the best year ever for video games is whatever year it was when one was 12. 1995, baby! So we'll get to all of that in the tavern. But before all of that happens, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod, where for just $5 a month, you get access to the show ad-free. Wow, so amazing. We have merch, amazing merch at shop.bloodgodpod.com, including this dope-ass mouse
Oh,
mat.
yeah.
Let's
That is
go.
dope.
Look at
ass.
this.
I need
Isn't
that.
that cool?
That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
just got it in the mail the other day, so I'm going to be... I love all of our merch these days. I'm wearing this extremely comfy zip-up hoodie. I'm like, wow, I'm really impressed by the comfort level. And also, I don't know if you can see that. It has the art on the back. It's the
saw a
art
little
on the
bit of
back.
it.
It's pretty
Our
cool.
lovely Nina Matsumoto art.
Thank you, Nina Matsumoto.
Yeah.
We're coming up on a new Pantheon vote. It's going to be coming up this week, and we're going to be doing another Pantheon episode for Cyberpunk 2077, which we were discussing a little bit in the pre-show. And we have fired up a side quest, another side quest. This one's going to be an anime. We're watching Freeren for the month of anime. Check the Discord for a watch guide. And you may not have noticed, but if you're a subscriber to the Axe of the Blood Guide, you get access to our newsletter, which there are two of them. One comes out on Tuesday, one comes out on Thursday. The Thursday one's the premium one that has an extended essay from Nadia. The Tuesday one will catch you up on all of the headlines and releases that are happening this week. I think it's pretty essential if you're an RPG fan. So go on and subscribe over at bloodgodpod.com. And finally, Charlian Dropouts. It's back every other week, streamed live Monday morning and in your podcatcher the following Wednesday. Gosh, that is a lot of content, isn't it, Victor Hunter?
There's nothing I love more than shoveling content into someone's content receptacle.
Beep, beep.
I am a human. Beep boop.
All right. Let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, originally released on the Wii U in 2016. It was huge. It was massive. And for a long time, it was one of the handful of games still locked to the Wii U. And it finally got released on the Nintendo Switch. It has an 88 on OpenCritic, with a whopping 100% of critics recommending it. I was not that hot on the original game. I bounced off it pretty hard in the original. I think in part because the art design wasn't resonating with me. The open world actual exploration was a little weird, a little barren, I felt, and it's a very dense and kind of weird game that can be, shall we say, inconvenient. You're doing a lot of repetitive actions, and I didn't like the side quests, so I was like, Did have giant robots, so that was pretty cool. I was into that. But Victor, you're a huge fan. You're a big fan. Tell me about that.
I'm a real big fan. Look, 2015 as a Wii U owner, and someone who wasn't buying a ton of games, I had just had Fatal Frame 5, Bayonetta 2, and then Xenoblade X. I thought the Wii U was gonna redeem itself. I was so sure. In fact, I was writing for a small little games site at the time, and I think I mentioned I think to pick up this game, I walked over to the Nintendo of Canada headquarters.
Yeah.
And picked up. They handed me a physical copy of the game to review. At that point in time, I gave it a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Now, yes. Now, my editor was a piece of shit. Seemed to not really trust me or believe me, so gave it a headline that kind of completely undermined that cast doubt on the content of my actual review, which I found incredibly insulting.
We gave Xenoblade Chronicles X a perfect score, but it's not perfect. Find out why.
This game sucks. 10 out of 10.
In so many words, exactly that. I think he probably introduced the term mixed bag or something of the sort.
Anyone who says that needs a bag of gravel slammed over their head. I'm tired of that word.
Anyway, I had a hell of a time. I didn't even beat it. I just managed to vibe with it for, 50 or 60 hours. And it's an incredible game. I mean, it is... There are some really... I recommend anyone go back into the Iwata Asks of the era, because there are some really, really good interviews that he does with Monolith and Takahashi and the rest of the Xenoblade team, including Kojima, who's the director. But it's an amazing game. I realized that as I was looking into its background, and this has been a topic of discussion over on the Blood God Discord, but there's some Chrono Cross DNA in here.
Ooh.
Specifically.
Oh wow! It makes me love it even more.
Cat perks up.
Chrono Cross.
Specifically the map designer, and I think you really see that in the way. So a lot of people know that this team went on to assist with Breath of the Wild. Aonuma has said that they got Monolith to basically design the world map of Breath of the Wild based on their experience that they had making Xenoblade X. And the map design lead comes from Chrono Cross. He was the background artist. So he comes from a background of pre-rendered PS1 and 32-bit backgrounds. So he understands how to pull your eye in a direction. He knows what a vista needs to look like for you to be interested in it and compelled by it. And Xenoblade X's biggest thing is that every vista compels you in a direction. Sometimes 5 directions, and then you forget that there was 4 other ones that you meant to do later on until you see them again. But he really understood how you sculpt a world map to be compelling.
Nadia, I was going to say, what's your experience with it, Nadia?
Getting ahead of myself. It's funny. I think I got my copy from Nintendo Canada too. Back in those days, Nintendo Canada was really sociable with its fans, and the people who worked.
They were great.
for like websites, for small sites in particular.
And then some jerk pirated Mario and Luigi, and that was the end of that.
What's going on here? You handing out stuff? What's with the merchandise? They had to hand it out. Yes. Mamma
Headline:
Mia.
Mamma Mia.
You do that again, you Mamma Dear Last Mia. Okay, but seriously, yeah. We did have the game, and I was a huge fan of Xenoblade Chronicles, the first one. I became a Takahashi believer. So I went into X kind of expecting more of that, and it wasn't more of that. The thing I love about Xenoblade Chronicles games is kind of that living on a giant animal aspect of it. And since they don't do that in 3, I kind of got over it. But Xenoblade Chronicles X just kind of came at a time when I don't think I had time to play it, and I was just like, it was an extremely dense game, as Kat says. It was very intimidating at first. And there was a big problem, as I recall, with the text being way too small. And I already have problems seeing, so I didn't really need any of that. But I am absolutely willing to give it another chance, and I will buy the remake. But right now I'm doing Cyberpunk. Obviously, we're talking about in the pre-show. I'm also wondering, like, but this might come up in the tavern. People have found like the code suggesting there might be a 60 frames per second upgrade for the Switch 2. This is all speculation. They just know that there's something in there that lets the game run at 60 frames per second, and it's not really working right now. So am I like, well, do I wait until I get a 60 frames per second experience? Probably.
Yes.
The thing with that, though, is that...
Counterpoint.
I could even start on the Switch and bring it over to the Switch 2, but what is the Switch going to come out with? Because there's going to be some big-ass game, and if it's a big-ass 30 long, very long game, who knows, maybe another Zelda. I'm not saying yes, but God knows. I might want to do... Hell, even if they say, hey, here's Tears of the Kingdom, 60 frames per second, I'm probably going to play that first and foremost.
Well, what if they don't?
Then
Tears of the Kingdom, 60 FPS would rule, actually.
It really would, yeah. But then, it's still a game I absolutely want to play, and I will play. I just think I wasn't approaching it at the right time, and I did find the sci-fi world kind of generic, but I'm sure if I played more, I'd probably get past that.
Eric, do you agree with Nadia, or
Disagree.
are you vibing more with Eric disagrees.
Disagree.
So right now, I let's see, on my side right now, I'm seeing Nadia and me as the less interested, and Eric and Victor appropriately are on the other side of the screen, and they're in the full sicko mode over here.
You sickos at home, peering through the glass, saying yes, ha ha ha, yes, and it's the second yes. It's very important. Yes, so I will fully admit that had I played Xenoblade Chronicles X back when it first came out, or Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, is it a cross or an X?
It is called Xenoblade Cross in
Xenoblade
Japan.
Cross.
It's called
They always do that to me.
Chronicles X in the English-speaking world. With again, that's superfluous Chronicles that no one asked for and no one needed.
It's not really like a Chronicles game, is my understanding. It is a Xeno game writ large,
right.
But it is it's not quite in the Chronicles lineage, is my understanding.
The Chronicles was just an invented thing for the Western localization. There's no Chronicles in Japan.
Wait, it's just Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3?
Xenoblade?
Yes, it's just called Xenoblade.
Justin Timberlake dropped the Chronicles.
Yes.
So I would not have enjoyed Xenoblade Cross if I played it back when it came out. I did not, but I do not think I was in the right headspace to accept the word of Xenoblade Cross into my heart at that time. But now I feel somewhat ironically that by playing the games that were directly influenced and inspired by it, I am more open to the idea of it. I do think Breath of the Wild unlocks something in my cold, dead heart about not just love of open world stuff, but love of what the open world can be, of what it can do. I think it goes to what Victor was saying earlier about not just vistas, but what can you do in an open world space while still retaining some of these ideas that are inherent to, say, a wizardry or even a Xenoblade. So I posted about this on B-Sky. Like, I ran into this mission where this dude was like, can you get my comm device? I dropped it fleeing from some monsters over there, and I need you to go get it and bring it back. I was like, oh, fetch quest. Okay, whatever. And so I go through and I'm walking through the world, and I'm having to like pay attention because I'm going through different zones, and each zone will kind of have pockets of, here's some docile monsters, like kind of grazing on grass. They're chill. You can walk right through them. It doesn't matter what level they are. You just walk right by them. They got no quarrel with you. You got no quarrel with them. Don't start things. There won't be things. But there are other packs of monsters over here. And even depending on what time of day it is, they might be roaming, patrolling. They might be sleeping, and they're a little bit more aggressive. So you might want to avoid them. So I'm doing that. I'm working through, and I'm using my drone scanner to shoot up into the sky and kind of look around and be like, okay, this is my path forward. And I finally get to the place where the comm device is, and I crest a hill. And oh, I love it when you crest a hill in this game. I love to crest hills. And then
we love cresting.
And then I find the comm device, and it's sitting on the ground in the middle of a den of a bunch of level 38 monsters, and I am like level 8. And I think to myself, the recommended level for this was like 4 or something. Like they're like, no, you can handle it, because the thing you are doing is not killing these monsters. It is getting the comm device back. The game is telling you, pay attention to what your objective is, dummy. Go do the thing we ask you to do. I think any other video game, I think most other video games would have had this be a mission where you go in, you find some monsters, you beat them up, you come back, you're all heroic. You're like, yes, I am the RPG hero. I have conquered and returned with the item. This one, I wish I might actually have the footage saved somewhere of me audibly screaming as one of the monsters wakes up as I grab the device, and I just skedaddle out of there like Scooby and the gang. And it was exhilarating. And this all happened like within the context of the systems, within the context of the world. It was built to create this story without ever having to sit down and show you a cutscene and be like, this is what's happening now. This is what we're doing. Update, objective marker. It just all happened very naturally and very freeform. And I was like, this is that good stuff. This is really like the game is communicating to you by just doing and by having things in the world that react to you.
Yeah, the thing I actually love about all the Xeno Chronicle games is that you always have that moment in the start or near the start of the game where you have that huge plane that just shows off. Like the opening with Primordia. Even the music there, like there's always some kick-ass fucking piece of music that's like right in front of the game like that. And with Primordia, I actually featured in the newsletter because we do a pick of the week for music promotion, $5 mark, $5 tier, do it. And yeah, I chose the music for Primordia because it kind of has that drop in the middle that's just insane. And yeah, I have to give them credit for knowing good game level design. They are frankly some of the best.
It's honestly amazing, and I think even so that's what I like about the open world. I think that works super well. But I even think some of the story stuff, maybe it was because I came in not expecting much from it, but I just finished a section where you stumble across like intelligent Xenos for the first time. You've kind of been dealing with indigens up to that point, indigenous life forms. They're just kind of hunting in packs, and they're very basic, animals essentially. Well, cows, dogs, stuff like that. They're just giant and can murder you. But at one point, you actually do start to encounter intelligent life forms that are organized, that are working together, that are opposed to you as a species, because they want their plot of land and you want your plot of land. And the moment when your team is having to negotiate what it means to attempt democracy and not start a war, but also try and defend their space because you are the last humans left on this ark that has escaped from a destroyed Earth, and you don't know who out here is beefing with you and who isn't. So it felt like Mass Effect 1 to me. This is I multiple times have said this is what I think I ultimately wanted from Mass Effect Andromeda, because it is that feeling of you are very alone in a place you do not understand, that is apathetic to your existence and continued survival as a species. You have not mastered this area. You are going to have to figure it all out. You're going to have to pathfind and establish a foothold to secure the future of humanity while also maybe not ruffling as many feathers as humanity used to do on its previous planets. And I love all those aspects of it.
I've said for a long
I wish
time that
Xenoblade Chronicles X had been Mass Effect Andromeda is really compelling to me, actually, in the sense of, that could have been actually a lot more interesting. Maybe if they had stuck to one. I know that they wanted to explore the stars and have a lot of procedurally generated planets and everything, but maybe the way was to go for a very large planet that you could explore using the Normandy and the little car, and rather than trying to have a zillion bespoke environments or something. I don't know, but anyway, what were we saying, Victor?
There was something interesting in the chat when Eric was talking about, going into this den of high-level monsters and booking it out in that feeling. And Sarden said, we could say that Xenoblade X was ahead of its time, when actually, in a lot of the interviews, the staff says they were big fans of a lot of online games. And you know which one does exactly this?
Oh, no.
Final Fantasy 11.
It happens every time.
Xeno always did have that MMO feeling, though, which was something I appreciated about it, because it taught me how to use MMO systems.
It's something that FF12 primed people for, and then Xenoblade ran with, and that lineage goes directly back to FF11. This is a game, like you say, it is hostile to you, and you just have to make it work. And even when you talked about running away from the den of monsters, there's just something about clicking in that left stick and that run, and then that Hulk jump that feels incredible.
The jump is so good. I was trying to figure out, I was in the Thursday night Discord hangout with the other denizens of the Blood God Discord, and is the jump because it is inherently a lower G environment than Earth, and that's kind of why you're like leaping up into the air rather than just kind of like hopping?
I thought you had like accessory or something like that.
No, I think
there's no
it's
fall
kind
damage,
of
which rules.
I think it's just rule of cool, because I don't think you really see anyone else jump like that, but you do have a Hulk jump that feels incredible.
It's really good.
Hulk jump.
I want to talk about something that Xenoblade X fixes that we still haven't seen anywhere else, because something that has plagued JRPGs for a very, very, very long time is that we all miss the world map, and we all miss getting the airship and that opening up the world map. Right. As the fidelity of games has increases and the resources needed to make those detailed world maps has become totally unfeasible, which is kind of the thing we're seeing with FF7 Remake, is how are they going to do the airship when it comes time for that? Because you have this incredibly detailed world, and you just don't have the ability to render all of that at the same time. Xenoblade X, it will be 25, 30 hours into the game before you even get the whisper of the idea that you will soon be able to pilot your Skell, which is your giant mech. The density of Mira, of the planet that you're on, and the geography, and the fact that they managed to get all of it seamless, no loading zones on the Wii U, means that once you unlock your Skell, it is the same sensation that we haven't had since the 32-bit era of finally getting that airship and feeling like you do have mastery over at least the places you've been before. Because then all of a sudden with Flight, you unlock access to places you weren't able to get to before. But it really is that feeling of making progress from being on foot to getting your first, you get your weird ATV in FF7, or like your boats and things in 4 or whatever.
For me, it was the Mana Beast in Secret of Mana.
Yeah, this, and then like you get your Skell, which can drive on land at first because it has its little transformer mode that switches into a car. and then into your giant battle robot. And then later on, you reach a point where you get your flight unit, and that escalates into being able to fly and literally go anywhere on the map. And it's incredible. And because so many other RPGs are in pursuit of like extreme detail and fidelity and just high polygon count of these really intense assets, this game, because it laid back on that just a tiny little bit, it managed to sneak in that sensation that has been missing from JRPGs for so long.
I completely agree, and I think one of the things that I've loved about this game so far is the world, is the places that you're seeing, the places that you're going. Even just New LA as like a hub is so fascinating.
Does it still have that rap song?
Yes. Oh, it goes so crazy hard too.
Not even rap. It's just a light hip hop beat. It's great. Both
the soundtrack
day and night songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic banger of a soundtrack. But I think even the world and the idea of the part where I realized I was going to be a little bit of a sicko about the world and the state of things was when they were giving me the tour of New LA, and they were like, over here is our residential zone, and it's just like suburban America, and there's even a cathedral. They went to a different planet and still built a church, and I was in my head going, that's the texture, that's the good stuff. That is, there's going to be some side quest there that's going to really mess me up. It's going to be really good. Like,
well, there's
church
at the beginning where Elma says, like, this is our beautiful lie to ourselves. As it's panning over the streets of the commercial district that are designed to look like Los Angeles. It's like, this is our little lie. This is, the sun came out. Oh my god.
The sun hates Xenoblade Chronicles X, so it's destroying Victor.
God peering in through the window. What are you doing in there?
Did I hear the word church?
Xenoblade, are you?
Are you taking my name in vain?
It's like when what's the dish when French people eat a bird, so they put a blanket over their heads so God can't see them?
Oh, the
I've
ortolan.
never heard of that. What the hell is that?
Yeah, it's like a bird. Okay, I'm sorry. Like maybe content warning for atrocities to animals because this is like a terrible thing that happens.
Oh my god!
But they literally like kill the bird and like do terrible things to it to make it taste really delicious. And I won't describe those things.
Are we talking about foie gras?
No, I mean foie gras is also that's a different thing. But the ortolan specifically, Google at your own risk.
Okay, I won't.
They have to like the thing is you put a napkin over your head so God cannot see the atrocities that you have done to eat something so delicious, which I think is very funny. The idea that like God can see us everywhere, but not if I have a napkin over my head.
That's so weird. That's amazing.
But yeah, no, I think that is a really great tone setter for this game that ultimately ends up doing a lot in its side quests too, because I've run into, I'm still very early on around chapter 4, but I've been really loving the tone that a lot of the writing and the side quests have taken with humans who are on this alien planet and are trying to not just establish life, but deal with the fact that they might be the only humans left. That like everything else is gone. Everything they know and love has been destroyed. It all happened in a short cutscene in the first minute of the video game. And I even love the setup that there was a hostile conflict that happened and Earth just kind of got caught in the middle and that's it. Like, boom. And your arcs try to escape and you don't know if there are other arcs. You don't know what is going on. You just know that you are what's left and you need to try and make it work. I'm going to take a swing here and the people can yell at me if not. It's got some Battlestar Galactica in there where it's like, oh yeah, that's, they're on the run. They don't know what's going on. They're trying to find a foothold for humanity among the stars, among a universe that does not care. And it works so well. Like the tone just kind of seeps into everything. And I think maybe if you want the more plot driven stuff, then other Xenoblade games are going to be more for you because they're going to be a little bit more cutscene forward. They're going to be a little bit more main narrative driven. Xenoblade 3 obviously runs through that entire campaign and all that. But what I like is that Xenoblade Cross really lets it just seep into everything and then lets the open world give you the vibes and inform the story and have these moments where you're walking by these giant elephant monsters that are just terrifying to roam by and be like, oh man, we shouldn't be here. This is not Earth.
We shouldn't be running in their feet.
But you don't have anywhere else to go. Like, that's it. Like, if you want humanity to live, fight for it. It's good.
They drive home the fact that you are refugees and you are just trying to survive so that eventually you can all just be safe. And
it reminds me of Titan AE, if anyone saw that.
Oh, sure.
Classic.
You know, I've been thinking about that movie a lot as I've been playing this game, and now the connective tissue has formed, and I'm going to end up watching Titan AE tonight. That's how this is going.
There's
Animation classic, Titan AE.
Is that sarcasm? I can't tell.
Yes.
Okay.
I did kill Fox Animation Studios.
I know it did something like that. A lot of 2D died in that time. It was kind of sad.
It was a tough time at the beginning of the 2000s.
there's oh yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
There's another thing. I was trying to think of the way that it presents, because you're right, the story is a little bit more slight, the main story anyway, but it's really built on a lot of its side quests, and a lot of those side quests revolve around the frontier nav, which is you filling in these little data pockets around the world and surveying the region and accomplishing little side quests in little areas. And I was trying to think of, why does this not bother me, but say FF7 Rebirth does, where you get to a new zone and you just see automatically a checklist of all the things there are to do there. And if you want to see all the story, because that's another game where a lot of its character is built in its side stories, but it just becomes a list of things to do in this zone. And I thought, why does this not bother me in Xenoblade X? And I think because it sets it up as, this is how we will survive. You are an important part of this team, and you do have to go out and do research and survey areas, and it works into the actual story of what the goal is for not only the goals of the player and the character align in a way that they do not in FF7, where the classic joke is, the meteor's gonna crash into the world, but we've got to go chocobo race. Like,
you gotta play some Queen's Blood.
Yeah, it's a lame joke that's been around for decades, and I don't necessarily agree with it. But I will say that the actual actions that you are doing to accomplish side quests in Xenoblade X align so much better with the narrative.
To your point, too, like, I think one thing that Xenoblade Cross does throughout all of it is it's just like, you're a blade, which is cool. You're also a blade. You're not the blade. Sometimes you're going to be kind of in the area. I think there's a part of FF14 that I always really liked, which is in the Heavensward post patches, where the Dragon Song War is happening, or the big conflict is happening. Yeah. And there's a cutscene I've always really loved where the Warrior of Light is walking through this battlefield towards this eventual trial and this big conflict showdown that's going to happen. And it really illustrates this idea that, yes, you are like the hero, you're the person who's going to ultimately do a cool thing, but you're in the middle of a conflict, and right now, up until that point, you're kind of just a soldier. You're just part of the broader force that is happening, because no part of this battle, this isn't Dynasty Warriors. You're not the wanderer from Dynasty Warriors Origins slashing through the hordes and all that kind of stuff. Like, you are just ultimately a very capable, very competent part of a larger force, and it always reminds you of that. I do think we should talk momentarily about what Definitive Edition does that makes the game, I think, a lot easier to get into, and that has worked really well for me. So I know that one of the big ones coming into this from Wii U was that you no longer have to go talk to a party member to add them or remove them from your party. And that's
good.
That alone, I didn't play that original game, but hearing that, I was like, they did that? That's kind of great. Look, I respect it. I respect the drive to be so sicko, but that is maybe a sicko too far. That is pushing through the glass and into the
Sick
room.
too far.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I fell into the room.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm calling the cops.
To the point where when I picked the game back up again on the Wii U, when this version was announced, I dropped in and just did not remember how to add people to my party or take them out. And I just gave up. I just went with Elma and Lynn, and that was the rest of that. I just ignored everybody else because I didn't know how to add people to my party again.
That's
I
pretty
feel
funny.
like that's a common refrain of people who played the Wii U original, is that they were just like, at some point I stopped trying and just used Elma and Lynn for most of it. Oh my god, these vistas. Sorry, I'm playing some B-roll from Nintendo Life on the stream right now and being reminded of how gorgeous this world is, and I still haven't seen all of it yet. It's very, very good. But also there's a lot of, I think one of the things I really like that I understand is new. I'm going to check this with you, Victor, real quick, but this whole like quick cooldown thing where if an art is on cooldown, you have a bar that you can expend to kind of use it anyways. So that way you can keep following up on the soul voices and keep the chain going and stuff like that. That feels really good. I like having that extra meter to dip into when I need it, but also have reason to not dip into it if I want to let that cooldown kind of ramp up or maybe like mix up my strategy a little bit. Yes.
So the way combat works is everything is on cooldowns. It very much like an MMO, like an FF11, to the point where you are also, you're tethered like tether ball onto your opponent and you sort of strafe around them. The way cooldowns work is they also have a secondary cooldown. So if you wait for that to go around again, then you can get up to a 250% damage increase. There are some things you will also unlock later, a tertiary cooldown, which can go up to like 400 something. So what you're doing is you now have this meter that as you build up, you can spend some of it to automatically fill up that cooldown bar. So what you're doing is, unless you were a really high-level player in the first version of the game, you would find yourself with a lot of things on cooldown every once in a while. And combat would kind of come to a standstill for a few seconds while you just wait for something to build up. This eliminates that, but then also, if an ability is already on its primary cooldown, you can then fast-track it to its secondary cooldown. So you're managing, how much meter do I want to spend on this? Do I need this ability to be in its first stage of cooldown or its secondary? It's all about there is just the addition of this little meter adds so much to the optimization and the flow of combat for people who really want to dig into it. And in general, one of the major quality of life improvements is that they tell you these things. The first version really left it up to you. There were tutorial menus that you could get to, but it really just kind of said, here's the basics of combat, figure out the nuances. To the point where Definitive Edition actually tells you so much more information about every single ability on the screen that you did not have before. You just kind of had to remember things about what was on your hotbar. And even in once you unlock Overcharge, there will be a little sign on the screen that tells you what the different combinations of Overcharge abilities will do. That was something that was just kind of left up to you to figure out. So yeah, they've done a really good job. And like Nadia says, it's all in a readable font size.
Yay! You can see.
Playing on Wii U gamepad only meant squinting very, very hard to figure out what you were even reading.
Lens Crafters owes a lot to the Wii U gamepad, let me tell you.
Though, I will say, when it comes to Frontier Nav and like fast travel and things like that, I do miss the Wii U gamepad. It was perfect for that.
Yeah,
I could see
it
that.
was great for some things. I won't deny that.
To the point where
managing the probes and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes, which you could do during loading screens. Like if you fast traveled somewhere, the gamepad stayed on and all the menus stayed there. So you could like buffer actions by using the gamepad while you were in the middle of loading to a new zone.
That's pretty cool, actually.
That does make me a little sicko. That does make me a little sicko. Yeah.
Right?
The Wii U gamepad was incredible for loading screen stuff, because I think that was also when Splatoon had Splat Jump or whatever, where you were playing with the little...
Yeah, you're playing Doodle Jump.
Yeah, that was a time. And Tokyo Mirage had the cell phone interface where you could text with people and stuff like that. Oh. Nintendo,
so
you could have done dual screen again. You had the power.
Nintendo's like, no.
I'm glad they didn't.
me steering the ship into the rocks. You can do it. You can do it again.
I miss unique interfaces. I miss fun. I miss it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to play Xenoblade right now, though, because it was kind of near the end of the life for the Wii U. It was a 2015 game, and I mean, the Wii U was already kind of bleeding life by that point, and then 2017 rolled around, and the Switch reinvigorated all of Nintendo as a whole. But now we're getting Xenoblade Cross Definitive Edition at what is presumably the end of the main Switch's, the original Switch's life cycle, heading into the Switch 2. And I find it to be a really fascinating game in that respect, because it's both a realization, I think, of what the team wanted to do with that original game, and now kind of getting its flowers for all that it created. It's also giving flowers to a game that ended up creating or inspiring so much of what made the Switch incredible. And even this game, like, running on Switch is kind of amazing. I have moments where I'm like, oh, right, you know, I've played Pokemon and I've played other games where I'm like, oh, I don't think the Switch can handle this. And then I play Xenoblade Cross and I'm like, maybe the Switch can handle this. Maybe the Switch can do this, theoretically.
Maybe we need a monolith soft Pokemon game. Maybe that's what we need.
Oh, yeah.
And
hey, I'd play that.
Yeah.
I do think there's an element of... There was a Rolling Stone article that I think some people got a little... mad over, where it called Monolith Soft like this, the scrappy studio that has like made its bones on the Switch, basically. But I think, like, however you feel about the word scrappy or not, I do think that's pretty accurate, because Monosoft has become that studio on the Switch.
Yeah.
It had, like, you can literally see, this is the game that came out and did not, it was the hidden gem of the Wii U, right? And then over the course of the Switch's lifespan, Monosoft becomes that guy, becomes the studio. And now we're going into a Switch 2 where this is the studio to watch, I think, to see what they can do with Switch 2 hardware. And so in some ways, having Xenoblade Cross Definitive close out the Switch feels like, okay, we are recognizing that this is the heir apparent. You know, you've got the Zelda team and the Mario team. They're all going to do the things that they are known to do well. I'm not saying that they're not going to do well on the Switch 2, but I'm saying that, like, Monosoft gets to take a victory lap on this one and say, like, we were here before, we know what's up, and this is proof in the pudding right here.
Yeah. I can't wait for those Xenosaga remakes.
Oh boy, here we go. At long last.
I mean, look, a solid... I think we were talking about this earlier, but like just a Xenoblade collection, just all together, all of them in one package. That'd be pretty sick. That'd be pretty good.
I'd buy that.
I'm surprised this game even came out.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
There's a lot of conversation about how Xenoblade Cross, apparently. I didn't realize it was Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, but...
It's X in North America.
X? Okay.
I just like saying Xenoblade Cross now. I think it's fun to say.
I was just checking in. Just checking in.
This is the studio that made Namco Cross Capcom and Project Cross Zone.
That's
They have their hand in the Super Robot world as well.
There were a lot of questions about whether this game would ever come out, because it was a little too weird, a little too janky, and it was very different from the other Xenoblade Chronicles games.
Was this the game, the infamous Vagina Bones game?
No, that was Tokyo
was it?
Mirage. That was Tokyo
that was
Mirage.
Tokyo Mirage. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tokyo
Tokyo
Mirage
Mirage.
sessions.
Yes.
Boy, the
I
Wii
like that
was-
y'all know exactly what it was.
We were on the
We were
front
there,
lines. we saw the war with our own eyes.
Oh, the Wii U was a hotbed. There is a trilogy between the Vagina Bones in Tokyo Mirage sessions,
I think I know where you're going.
Xenoblade X taking away the boob slider, and
Yes.
character
That was what I'm thinking
customization,
of. Yeah.
and Fatal Frame 5 getting rid of bikini costumes.
That wasn't the
Also,
third one I was thinking
Basically,
of.
the Wii U was the
Someone was
of
13
video
years old. Someone was
Yeah.
13, and they changed that in X.
To some degree, this is always, not always, but starting from a certain point of the internet being a place where people talk about video games onwards, Nintendo games, especially like the more theoretically mature Nintendo games, and keep in mind this is is it T-rated? I know it's Peggy 12 because I wrote that story the other day about how they had to add the sex label to Xenoblade Definitive for this one.
Did they do it in a bunch
And people-
of European languages? Like,
Yeah, so Peggy 12 on the
Sex.
original Wii U, it was just bad language and violence for this game.
Yeah.
Peggy 12 bad language violence. Definitive edition on the Switch, Peggy 12 bad language violence sex. And a bunch of people were posting like, what did they put in this game? What did they add? My favorite comment was the first game was before they invented sex. But it was just like recognition that there's a fair bit of sexual innuendo in this game.
Yeah.
There's there are comments that characters make that are definitely like innuendo. And so I think that's just a recognition of how our rating standards have changed over the years, that it didn't raise or lower the rating at all. It just added like, let's note that too, that's in there. But even going back to like the 3DS, and was it Tharja in Fire Emblem Awakening,
Yes.
that they put the gleam of light in, the infamous beam of light and stuff like
made
that.
it worse.
For some reason, whenever Nintendo makes like a slightly more mature video game, it becomes like a hotbed issue of just takes.
Yeah. It
The
really
Wii U
does.
is especially fertile ground because the people who were playing that thing were the real sickos, the Nintendo sickos, who are going to, some of whom, not all, are going to maybe be talking about this kind of stuff. But so Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition sounds like it's getting a strong recommendation from Eric and Victor.
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't even talk about how it's a Hiroyuki Sawano soundtrack, who's known
It's
for
pretty great.
incredible
Bangers.
anime soundtracks. I know some people have complained about a couple songs. They're just so wrong. It's funny. Kunihiko Tanaka, who did the original character designs or character illustrations in Xenosaga 1 and Xenogears, did a lot of the, especially like the player characters and a lot of the main NPCs were also designed by him. So I know some people, faces are new in Definitive Edition. They did remodel a lot of NPC faces, and some of them, I feel like the original kind of stays a little closer to his art style, but you can see it 100% in these character designs, and that warms my heart. It's, I don't know, it's a great game. A lot of people just passed it by, and I get it. I'm just happy to be here to say I told you so.
I think for the returning player, that's a very good standpoint to have, as the I told you so.
Yeah.
I think for anyone who's on the fence, I am new to this. Xenoblade 3 was my first Xenoblade game, and before that I'd really only dabbled in Xenosaga. I infamously bounced off Xenogears. I'll go back to it one day, I promise. But
You bounced off the good one, Eric.
No,
It's-
he was right.
look, we don't need to get into that. That will derail the entire pod.
Oh, wait, move me over to the side of the screen with Cat now, because I'm over
Featuring that in second screen.
Yeah, it's
Xenogears rules.
Screen and
Yeah.
screen.
but Xenoblade X, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, is I think the open world RPG that I've been wanting open world RPGs to be for a long time. It's the open world RPG that, rather than taking the sort of like progressive incremental sort of thing where you go through each zone and it levels with you, and maybe you have to grind a little bit in each one and you move on, or worse, I really dislike this system, everything scales to your level, which is my least favorite leveling system in any kind of RPG ever, because you never feel like you are actually challenged. You always feel like you are just consuming content. And contrary to what I have said on Charlie and Dropouts, I do not always want content shoveled down my content hole. Sometimes I just want a little bit of like friction, a little bit of texture, a little bit of something interesting going on. That's why I like Fallout New Vegas so much. And I see some of that in Xenoblade, and especially Xenoblade Chronicles X, where I'm walking around and all of a sudden, like, I'm in this place where I'm like, I should not be here. I need to get out of here, but I need to go here to do some stuff. Yeah, like Territorial Rothbart aside, which there is one of those, and when they pop up, it's very funny. But even just the idea of you're watching the sun go down, night's coming out, you know that like different monsters are going to come out. You haven't been in this place before, so you don't know what's going to start to come out of the woodworks, whether it's going to be peaceful, whether it's going to be docile, or whether like you're about to be hunted. Like there are monsters that will hunt you essentially, and it's kind of terrifying. And this is all on the ground stuff. Then you start getting into the mech, and then the game changes. The game is a different video game. The scale changes. Monsters that used to be docile, like that giant elephant thing that didn't care about you when you were a tiny ant on the ground, it's probably going to care when you're a giant mech flying around its neck. It's going to start to swat at you the way it would not swat at other things. And then you start to add in not just the way the world looks different, but the way you move through it looks different. The way combat starts to work differently. And this is a game that manages to pull off so many different viewpoint altering shifts in what it gives you. And all of this is hinged around a plot that I just think is really excellent, is really good. And it's not the story we always see in video games. I think for all of the happiness I felt around seeing the surge of your classic fantasy D&D story again in games, things like Baldur's Gate, which are incredibly good, I think this sort of sci-fi story is really something else. And the way they have pinned it, as we talked about, to the open world works so well. It is the like refresher that I have needed, and hopefully the sign of, if we are recognizing this, if we are giving this the definitive edition that has been asked for so often, that this will continue to be something that influences people moving forward, because I think it should be seen as an influential work.
Yeah. Not to mention, there's a new epilogue and a new zone, and I haven't seen what
I'm not
there
even there yet. Yeah.
But oh God, I hope, like Future Redeemed, it ties into Xenosaga somehow.
That'd be crazy.
There's other thing about the texture in the world is that I believe they've raised the level cap in Definitive Edition, but it used to be that you could only get to level 60, and you would see monsters that were above level 60 out in the world. So it was like, even if you're max level, I hope you're good at this video game.
That's such a good thing too, because it's like, yeah, you're stumbling across monsters that might have lived for dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of years. You don't know what their deal is. You just know they're big, angry, and probably able to kill you. So if you want to tussle with them, you better show up prepared. And that's like, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Well, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, it's out right now. Go check it out. Okay, and now it's time for a series of random encounters. Capcom is hosting a Monster Hunter Wilds showcase on March 25th to share more details about the upcoming title update 1, which is great because I could use more monsters to hunt, more hunting of the monsters. Pokemon TCG Pocket, my favorite game, is adding shiny Pokemon, ranked matches, and Paldea region Pokemon and trainers in Shining Revelry on March 27th. You can get red in this one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you can get red. You can also get the Wiggly Trio, the not safe
Lug
for work
Trio?
Pokemon.
Wait,
Oh,
what?
those
Weak Trio, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Wug Trio. How is
Wug Trio.
Wug Trio looks like what's
questions.
that monster from Monster Hunter? It looks like a big dong. That's what it looks like. It looks like a
Yeah.
dong, everybody.
Oh, you're talking about Kezu.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, let Kezu
Whoa,
live,
good
all
old
right?
Wug Trio. In any event, I'm excited for this one. You can get Red finally, and so you can complete the Pokemon Red trio, and also you can get a shiny Charizard EX in that full art card. Looks really sick.
Yeah.
So, am I still playing Pokemon CCG Pocket? Yes, I am. Did I get my amazing Rainbow Hollow full art Infernape card the other day? Yes, I did.
Oh,
It was
congratulations.
incredible. I was sitting at a talk at GDC, and I was like, I'll just rip a pack.
Back.
And then, oh my god, I cannot believe I actually got this.
Did you scream during the panel?
The
That'd
GDC
be
VOD
funny.
is like playing there, like, and this
Borderline.
is how we developed the battle system of, oh my god, burr, burr, burr.
My pull luck in Pokemon TCG Pocket has been just stupidly good. I cannot believe it. And yeah, I'm gonna get the premium pass when the new set comes out. So, but that'll be out March 27th. Night Dive's long-awaited System Shock 2 remaster. It's coming out on June 26th. If you want to go check out an older Pantheon episode with my pal Jeff Green, it's over on the premium feed when we talked about System Shock 2.
Yeah.
Square Enix has accused Blackjack Studio which it hired to make a new front mission game of stealing assets and copyright infringement. Hasbro will have more to share about the future of the Baldur's Gate franchise in pretty short order, though as previously confirmed. That won't include Larian. Meanwhile, Larian Sven Vinky weighed in on the debate over whether big single-player games are dead. Use your imagination. They're not dead. They just have to be good. That is... Anybody who says big single-player games are dead have not been paying attention, and frankly, that's like a thing that's been said for 15, 20
It's
years
been a long
now.
time. They don't
Yeah.
stop.
Going back to the World of Warcraft, and consistently, I'm sorry, we live in a world where single player games like Stardew Valley, which admittedly has a co-op element but is mostly single player, has sold like 30 million copies.
If you
Right? I
have
mean,
millions
come
of
on.
players playing video games of all kinds, you're going to have people with different tastes. It's really not rocket science.
Not only that, but more than, yes, you have service games that are vacuuming up all the playtime and all the engagement, but running a service game is not easy in
No.
this day and age. It's a huge amount of resources. You have a large community that you have to manage, and it's just not a given that you're going to have success if you make a live service multiplayer game, Sony.
99 chance you're going to fail. You can't break into that market that easily.
A lot of the narrative also comes from people who are they play one video game for 8 hours a day and then suddenly go like, man, nobody makes video games anymore. Nobody does video games anymore.
There's no creative video games like
I've
there were
been
when I was a
just
kid.
streaming 16 consistent hours of Destiny 2 into my brain for the last 24 hours and nobody makes video games anymore. And I'm like, go play Balatro. Go play, like, I don't know, go play something that has come out recently. Go play a game that is coming up on this list of random encounters that looks really sick and I downloaded last night. Can't wait to play it.
I'm playing a little game called Cyberpunk 2077 right now.
Same.
I guess for me, there's too many games to play at any given time.
haven't
Kingdom
even
Come
started
Deliverance
Pirate
2
Yakuza.
is sitting right over here. I gotta play more of that game. Seriously. And just February alone, a very large number of good games came out. So, in any event. So yeah. Sven Vinky, correct as usual. Use your imagination. They're not. They just have to be good. Lastly, Devolver Digital just shadow dropped Look Outside, a pixel art horror RPG made by Franix Colum,
Francis,
who worked
my
on
bad.
sprite art for Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden. Weren't they going to make a sequel to that? Never came out. R.I.P.
Yes.
It looks like a Sweet Home spiritual successor, and it's $10 on Steam.
Yeah, that game looks sick. A friend of the show who appeared recently, Lucas White, did a review for it and had nothing but good things to say about it, and was putting that onto my radar to be like, hey, pay attention. This is worth checking out. So cannot recommend that enough. Look outside. Might talk about it on the pod in the future, but it looks really sick.
Cool.
There's one more item on here that's in a different color. I assume it's Victor. Feature phone preservationist Rockman Cosmos says Lost Xenosaga prequel Pied Piper has been preserved in its entirety and is in the process of receiving a fan translation.
None of those words are in the Bible.
I actually know Rockman Cosmo very well. I think we did an episode of Retronauts about game phone preservation because there's a crap load of Mega Man games stuck on feature phones, which are all most of them are owned by different providers. It's a whole thing. It's actually incredible what happens to the feature phone market in Japan. But the point is, it's really hard to preserve those games, and they're doing a really, really great job doing that. So every game saved is a blessing.
Yeah, it's a very good episode of Retronauts. I highly recommend anyone listen to it. And he's constantly chronicling on Blue Sky the progress of feature phone preservation. They've made so many advances in that realm over the last just like year and a half.
It's really taken off.
Yeah, and this is one of those little bits of Monolith soft history that is preserved now. Unfortunately, he says the 3 Tales of games, full featured, new cast, they're just Tales of RPGs. There's a trilogy of them on feature phones, are going to be very, very difficult to preserve, just the way they streamed too much data to save space on the phone. Too much of it is streamed, but they're also working on things like Before Crisis, which is a huge one that would be massive if we finally got. But yeah, it's cool stuff over there, and they're cool, weird little games. I mean, both of those Mega Man Battle Networks are available with English fan translations, and you can just download a little package that has the emulator in it and everything. It's incredible, amazing.
Now we're rolling into the tavern, tucking in by the fire, and talking a little more about what's happening in the world of RPGs. I just got back from the Game Developers Conference 2025, which was a very enjoyable show. I was kind of worried that nobody would show up, and indeed some people opted not to make the journey this year, but
weird.
It was, weird. Something's going on. I don't know. I reconnected with a lot of people, went to a lot of good talks. I went to an indie event for Xbox and had an opportunity to sit down and play some games. Some good games. They were pretty fun, actually. I saw Keita Takahashi, interestingly enough. He's showing his new game, To a T. Have you heard of this game?
It looks really cool. Yeah.
It's a very cute game about navigating the world when you have a disability, and in this case, the disability is kind of a fantastical idea of being caught in a T pose forever.
Forever T pose.
And so there's just lots of little moments. Like there's a little service dog that'll help you get dressed. You're trying to pour cereal, going around outside. It's very cute. I really liked it.
What was someone said that someone said to him, like, I love how out there and weird and crazy your ideas are. And he said, I was trying to make a normal one this time.
Oh, I can relate to that. I know that feeling very well.
He's an interesting guy. He was sitting in the corner with his game, wearing a beanie, being extremely unassuming, with like a little ramen, and he was he speaks very good English, but is surprisingly blunt in a way that I don't often see from Japanese developers. He's an interesting guy to talk to, I have to say. I also randomly saw him at Ippudo Ramen, which is near the show floor.
Wow, he likes ramen.
That's Keita Takahashi. Turns out he likes ramen.
Hell yeah.
I tried a game, Nadia, this one's for you. I tried a game called Winterborough. Have you heard of this one?
No, but it sounds mousy.
It's another mouse game. It has this beautiful storybook art. It's kind of isometric. It is a cozy survival sim, so you're going out and doing all the usual stuff. The second thing you do is you repair your armchair so that you can knit a sweater so you don't die of exposure.
That sounds extremely funny, but
It
in a
is.
really cute
I
way.
did. I died of exposure and lost all my stuff. And they were saying,
oh, no.
we're going to put in a map with a waypoint so you can get all your stuff back. Also, maybe you won't lose all of your stuff. But there are these interesting NPCs around. So it's your kind of typical indie mashup where it's like, what if Stardew Valley going home to your parents' place to repair it, but also Redwall? And I said, yes, this is a game flavor that I really would like in my life. So
I would like to see some of the friction that comes with being a Redwall character, though. Like, for example, marauding rats, a giant-ass snake, stuff like that. 'Cause
is that what we call it? Friction? Just a marauding band of bandits, of rats and ferrets and stoats just showing up at your door?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, even Stardew Valley can give you a farm where you have enemies. Like, it does have that, like, element of doing more than just making a cozy place. I know there's been like a whole thing on Blue Sky about quote unquote cozy games and some weird opinions about them, but I just, I like the idea of making an abbey, for example, to give me a reason. Like, I guess that sounds like they are giving you a reason, though. It's like, oh, well, if you don't have this place, it's going to be cold. You're going to die of exposure because you didn't knit a sweater. I think that sounds pretty great, actually. I think that's a nice quirk that I like. So if you want to add more quirks, by all means, like I said, Clooney the Scourge, Asmodeus the freaking snake,
I was gonna
whatever.
say, let's get a fox with a weird mask in there. Get him
Yeah,
involved
let's
somehow.
Slagar up in that shit.
Yeah.
I'm taking all your children, bye. Because you were nice to me once.
And then you have to go
Wow.
get the sick sword, and then you get the badger who's like drinking a bunch of whatever that cordial was. Like
Strawberry cordial.
they kept talking about strawberry cordial, and I was like, I'm a child, I don't know what this is, but it sounds
What is
great.
cordial? What are scones? What's a deeper and ever turnip and tater pie?
What's a Turkish delight? Me reading Chronicles of Narnia.
This is where I became British food pilled, I guess.
I had a client who once brought us like actual Turkish delight when I was a dog groomer, and we were just like, "Oh, cool, we're gonna do the Narnia thing now. We're gonna sell it Jesus." And we like tasted it and we're like, "Oh, this actually kind of sucks." And it turns out it's because like they say Edmund was tempted because like it was the rationing during the Blitz, and he hadn't had sugar in a very, very long time. So Turkish delight is sugar practically in gelatin. So that was enough to crucify a lion over or something like that.
Just like that, we're back to Xenogears.
Oh my god, a Xenogears Narnia crossover. I am here for that. Yoko Taro Narnia crossover.
Zohar in Narnia.
Put Cosmos in Narnia, she'd fix it. The last battle over in a second.
Talking bear looking up like, I don't understand any of this shit. I'm a bear, for Christ's sake.
It's Aslan being like, we will fight for Narnia, and then Shulk being like, yeah, I'm really feeling it. With the power of the Monado.
I hope Nintendo's listening. Come on, Nintendo.
I think the game that probably drew the biggest crowd was Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
I was
which they had a demo going. I didn't really play it that much because I've already played it on PC. We talked about it on a recent episode. Go check that out. Senior producer was there, and I talked to him briefly about the origins of the game and its connections to sort of the spin that a French studio gave to it. I tried to get some good Andy Serkis or Ben Starr stories out of them, but alas, no such luck. But surprising to no one, the origin of the game is that the director just really, really likes JRPGs and decided that we need to make a turn-based RPG in the style of the classical console RPGs, and here we are. So, Victor, have you checked out Clair Obscur? Are you interested in it? It seems like it does seem a little bit like a U game.
Yeah, a little bit. I think it looks cool. I don't know when I'll get around to it, if ever, but I'm glad it exists. You've
got more Final Fantasy XI to play.
Well, it's just part of it truly is that like my I like spending a lot of my time playing the games that game is riffing off of. And I still have a bunch of those I want to play.
I hear that.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I still got to get to those guys. But I'm glad that we are still proving that these games can exist in this form.
Well, the RPG conveyor belt never stops. And ever so you'll just be playing Final Fantasy 11, then you'll be like, "Oh, that's Clair Obscur Expedition." Rolling right past it. Okay, oh, have a good time.
Yep. I'll get to you in 10 years.
Clair Obscur is just we talked earlier about Sven Vinke saying like, yeah, single player games aren't dead. Like you just gotta make good ones. And like Clair Obscur, from what I've played so far, is like, yes, you can make that game.
Yeah.
You can do that thing.
Well, it really stands out for the high quality production, the fact that it's using Unreal Engine 5. It originally started in Unreal Engine 4, went into 5. The power of the voice talent is really stunning. It's very, very polished, and it grabs your eye from a distance consistently. It's the game that you want to walk over toward. So. And then finally, I played some Towerborn. Remember Towerborn? So it's basically Castle Crashers, but maybe sort of updated. I hung out with one of the producers and talked a lot about the updates that have been happening behind the scenes with the early access. They're releasing a split-screen co-op mode. And if you're not familiar with Towerborn, the long and the short of it is you make a character, they're a particular class, and you go beat up a lot of guys and get XP and keep growing. There's a lot of missions. I saw a fully revealed map, and it was humongous. And they're just working on continuing to refine it. So I was like, this looks pretty good. So I might play a little bit more. I like a good beat 'em up.
Yeah.
So, but I think my favorite RPG adjacent thing there was probably Winterboro, and then my favorite thing, period, was To a T, and then Clair Obscur looks pretty good too. So outside of the indie event, I went to a few different talks. There were some good ones. I went to a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth talk with Teruki Endo. He talked a lot about making the battle system and the give and take and the rhythms of the pressured versus staggered, and also making some of the characters. I learned that he really likes Cloud. Cloud is his favorite, and he was kind of a Final Fantasy VII fanboy, so he was like, oh my god, I get to like make a game using Cloud. He talked a little bit about adapting the original command-based system from the original game, and he also talked about his experience working on his origins as working on Monster Hunter Tri back in 2009, and that made me make a lot of connections, I guess, between Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I was like, oh, no wonder I like this game.
Did you play Tri? Did you like Tri?
No, but I like Monster Hunter, and
that's
over
fair.
time, Monster Hunter has been built on the same bones as Tri and things like that. They've definitely removed a lot of the friction. They've streamlined it, maybe to its detriment, maybe not, but the ideas are still there, I think.
We talk about that a little bit on the most recent Charlian Dropouts, I believe. The lowering of skill floors and ceilings for the player, but raising or lowering them for unique combat instances. Yeah, there's a lot of crossover in what Monster Hunter is doing and what FF14 is doing right now.
Agreed.
So
yeah,
go check that out.
So MMO-like, in other words.
Not necessarily, but the way challenge and friction are handled on either end of whether it's the player or the encounter, you know.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, I think it's interesting the way that games are trying to dip the skill floor a little bit lower to let new people in, because this has been a thing for a long time, right? The first time a video game came out, it wasn't as hard as it eventually becomes. The first Monster Hunter, I have not played it, but I imagine it's probably not up to the scale of the hardest Monster Hunter. But when you have this big explosion like Capcom does, I think lowering that floor and then raising where things go up helps. And so we see things like in 14 with, hopefully, knock on wood, the Occult Crescent and other content potentially raising up the floor where other times they have lowered it so that people can experience some of the things that they might like about 14 without necessarily having to get really deep into extremes, savages, stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. It's really more like it's a conversation that people have been having since like Devil May Cry. It's sort of more of an action game thing.
I really like the intentionality that goes into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's battle system. One of the things that I never really liked about Kingdom Hearts was that it was a button masher at the end of the day, and so I found it pretty repetitive. But I think that Remake and Rebirth really do
a low skill floor.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there you go.
It didn't, much like other games, it didn't ask a lot of you when you're trying to play through it on normal, right? Like if you try to sit there and play like Proud Mode or something, okay, now you gotta engage with the systems. Now you gotta think about what you're doing.
It's at the highest levels, it's a lot twitchier and skill-based, where I think there's still certainly a skill-based element to Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, but it also feels a lot more tactical, as it were, and that's like intentional. And they talked about that a fair amount during the talk. We were talking about Monster Hunter earlier. I was playing a bunch of Monster Hunter Wilds last night, and actually, I was going, God, why does this game look so bad on my PC? It turns out for some reason the graphics settings all defaulted to low, to the lowest possible graphics settings, so it borderline looked like a PS2 game. And then I cranked them back up to high, and I was like, oh, okay, that's much better. That was weird. Anyway, I was also reflecting on how easy it is because we just bodied a lot of monsters, and I'm still using. I'm well into high rank now. I'm like high rank 20, and I'm still easily defeating monsters with a low rank set. I don't even feel that compelled
I have to admit that
to upgrade.
I am a Monster Hunter. I'm new to Monster Hunter, quite new, and I'm kind of breezing through a lot of the fights. Not breezing, but I don't get carded a lot, as I learned what the verb is. But I still really enjoy it. Like, I think it's a lot of fun to just shoot bombs into hot spots.
Now, hear me out.
No, I'm having a great time, to be clear.
We posited last week while you were gone, Kat, we did a Blood God community night where we had a ton of fun establishing a squad lobby where everybody was hanging out, joining into hunts. We had several hunts going at different times, and the stream and Nadia and I were kind of popping through different ones and helping people hunt. It was a really good time. Really, really had fun. Learned a lot about how to hunt a Chatacabra Plus. That was its own unique problem.
That came up.
During that time, we posited, okay, like we're at the point now where we've played some Monster Hunter, we've had fun. Maybe we're hitting the point where the hunts aren't doing what we wanted them to. But you know what we haven't done that we've talked about doing? We haven't played Grand Blue Fantasy Relink on a stream yet. And so maybe if the Monster Hunter Mondays slow up a little bit, maybe it's time to get a little Grand Blue going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is another one where I float this out during the pod just to be like, time to get public pressure on my side.
we need to get Kat into another thing when she's playing like 5 different things at the moment.
This would only be Mondays. That's the beauty of it.
Let's at least wait
check in
until after we're done the Cyberpunk thing, so I don't have to start up another game, and I'm keeping like 5 games in my head right now.
That's
rotating.
The beauty of Monhun Mondays is y'all are out here playing Monster Hunter off stream. I don't know why you're doing that. I'm only playing Monster Hunter on stream. If you don't see me on stream, I am not playing Monster Hunter.
Fair. The reason I mentioned Monster Hunter actually was that it made me think of a Metaphor Refantagio talk that I went to. So there were a couple of good talks. One was about making the art. I did not get to attend that one because I went to a really good talk from John Linneman instead about the limited run guys and the digital Eclipse guys and John Linneman all talking about the history of game capture for retro games and also upscalers.
That's cool.
It was wide ranging and it was very dense and I really enjoyed it. But I went to a Metaphor Refantagio battle system talk, and at one point they mentioned that Atlas is quite famous for being very difficult. and we're connecting it back to Nocturne. And they said, we do this on purpose. We make our games hard so that people will want to engage with the mechanics, and so it makes the loot more interesting. And it made me think a lot about Monster Hunter, which is having a problem where the loot feels less interesting. The mechanics feel less interesting because I'm annihilating these monsters and not even thinking that deeply about it.
I love that about Metaphor, is that every piece of gear I got out of a dungeon felt super earned, because even though I think like the dungeon design was not groundbreaking necessarily, it was I saw some of the slides coming out of this where I think there was one talking about how a dungeon crawl is a war of attrition. And so it's this idea of like, you enter a dungeon and you ideally, especially in a game like Metaphor where there's time constraints, want to get through that dungeon in one go. And so you have to think about what resources do I have versus what is the enemy throwing at me and in what order. So I know I'm going to have to fight a boss at some point. How am I going to allocate everything to get through this conflict and get the things that I want without having to expend resources I don't want to expend? Namely, like, okay, I'm cool with spending skills because those are pretty freely given, and then I might have to spend items to replenish things like SP and HP, but I don't want to expend time because time is my most limited resource. And so I think that's like a really cool thing that I do see Atlas play with a lot, that I like a lot, is having those sorts of wars of attrition and what resources you're willing to put on the table to get something of commensurate reward.
Yeah, and they talked about the dungeons, actually, that their viewpoint on the dungeons is ultimately it is kind of a war of attrition.
Yeah.
And they talked a lot about balancing out those aspects. They talked about the difficulties that one of their initial concepts was that you could complete any fight just by doing real-time attacks.
I love that.
And why they walked away from it, which amounts to the core of the game is the command-based system. It's what they're like very famous for. So they decided to reorient and focus on that as well. And also, apparently, in one of their original ideas, they had it so that it was more of if you attacked an enemy, there was and you ambushed them successfully, there was a 20% chance that they would get first turn anyway. Which was confusing and annoying to the playtesters because it was very counterintuitive. But the reason they did that was apparently stretched back to a decision with Nocturne, because their battle planner worked on the original Nocturne.
Wow.
They said that in Nocturne, you would sometimes enter battles where the enemy would get the first hit on you. And the idea was to kind of sharpen the feeling of the battle of attrition where you're using healing items, because it's like one of the core decisions that you're making when you're exploring a dungeon is, when am I using my healing items? When am I going to try to heal myself up? So, but it really wasn't working to attack an enemy and then have them suddenly get the first turn anyway.
It'd be cool if they turned and like parried you really quick, and then there was like a clash thing, and it was like they get first hit because of reasons or whatever. But I do love the idea of the Nocturne battle planner. Like, they're like, I don't know, what do you think of the system? And the Nocturne battle planner in the back being like, yeah, fuck them.
Fuck them kids.
And finally, I went to a Palworld panel, just kind of on a whim. It was from their community manager, who is a Irish guy, I believe, and who now resides in Japan. And he was talking a little bit about the inside of Pocket Pair and the studio and everything, and what it was like to manage the release of Palworld. And it was some interesting insights, because Pocket Pair, despite having one of the bigger games out there, it's still top 50 on Steam. And being relatively famous, obviously they got sued by Nintendo. They did talk a little bit about that during the talk. Has sort of been a little bit out of the public eye. They took some shots at IGN, actually, about...
Did they say, oh God,
I was kind of chuckling because I was the news director at the time. But what I kind of picked up was still a relatively small studio. they're intentionally keeping a lot of the developers from being public facing. They only have a couple that are public facing. The community manager is one of them because he speaks English. And also, they're really salty, really, really, really salty about the accusations of AI generation and plagiarism specifically, to the point where I guess they went and did a feature with a Japanese magazine where they showed how PALs are created, which amounts to, which I found interesting just in the sense that apparently it is similar to how Pokemon were originally created, where you would have artists who would just come up with concepts and then they would crowdsource them and vote on them in the Slack channel. And they showed this magazine feature that they did in Japan. They released a lot of concept art and things like that to kind of show, hey, like, look, we actually made these monsters. We're not plagiarizing. We're not AI generating them. But it didn't get a huge amount of traction because it was in Japan. So
yeah, we talked a bit about this in the pre-show.
Yeah, you were going, screw them. They're definitely plagiarizing. I'm like, well, that's an accusation.
I'm not saying that's not the problem. That's what I was saying. I was saying that, like, first of all, well, let's go straight to that particular problem. I didn't say that they were plagiarizing. I was just saying, like, I'm sorry, you look at these and you immediately see, like, a Totoro mixed with an Electabuzz or whatever, and no, that's not direct plagiarism, but accusations are like, well, you just kind of took two Pokemon and Totoro and mashed them together. And if they were just cool about that and said, yeah, I kind of get why people will say that, whatever, we're over here playing our game, getting sued by Nintendo, that'd be fine, but they're really doubling down on it. And if they have, as you say, taking shots at, like, IGN for probably just publishing what the direct news about this thing, yeah, people are saying that they look like Pokemon.
They're pretty salty about the media coverage.
And I mean,
the game.
I can understand the accusations of AI. This is something I just got into on Blue Sky the other day. I do think that people are way too quick to say, "Oh, this is AI. Oh, this is this is like generated," and that can really, really hurt an artist if you accuse them of using AI. It can hurt a writer. So unless you're absolutely sure, no, don't do that. Even if they're ripping off Pokemon.
They were connecting a lot of the accusations to posts on X, social media, specifically one thread where somebody was saying this is plagiarism right here, which then spun into an entire ecosystem of people breaking down the actual designs. Remember IGN? There was stuff in the media too. IGN did a story along those lines. So yeah, I mean, what I got was that they were pretty salty, all in all. But
I mean, put on your big person pants. I understand why the accusations of plagiarism were there, and I understand, totally. It's not plagiarism. You're right, but
I wasn't sure.
Not great.
It's a weird studio because there's been a lot of conversations about how it was founded and where the funding came from and the actual intentions of it and the way they were specifically framing themselves. They've been specifically framing themselves as a plucky upstart little studio that's just, we do it for the love of the game. The love of the game. We love Pokemon so much. Yeah, of course we love Pokemon. We love monsters.
Let's give them guns.
But, like, we're fans. We're making a game. It's cool. Why you gotta be so mean to us? And the way they did that was through stories like, oh yeah, like we all came together in the office and we were having champagne and the game launched and the server immediately crashed from our one network admin. Going, well, the server's crashed. And I was like, one network admin? And they're like, yeah, we still only have one network admin.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That's
if that's true. But it
Eric's
does
making the face.
But it does feel like they're very specifically crafting a narrative of, like, we're so small and cute. And we're just trying to make a game for the love of the game.
Come on, it's our birthday.
I guess I'm a little skeptical. I feel like there's a lot going on. Maybe more to that game, and I'm, like, hesitant to lean into that narrative, so to speak.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I really hope that they're lying if they say that they still are very short-staffed on network admins, because otherwise, like, being quirky is not an excuse for just not having the stuff that you should have when you're selling that many copies of a game on Steam.
Yeah, where's this money going? Yeah.
Like
I agree.
quirky malfeasance is still like you're running into problems. Like I am sorry. Like
Yeah.
I don't everything else I'm like, look, you made parody Pokemon, like, yeah, own it at some point. You know, you did the Nathan for you dumb Starbucks, and
Yeah.
it worked. It worked super well. I've
It
played
worked really well.
Palworld.
Good for you.
I played
Yeah.
a bunch
It
of Palworld
sounds
when
to
it came
me
out. It's a fun game.
Like they are conflating accusations of plagiarism with accusations of creative bankruptcy.
And
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
And I will say, just one piece of advice: if you're listening to this, Pocket Pair devs, don't listen to
I know
Twitter.
you are.
Don't listen to Twitter. Like
Twitter's
it doesn't.
terrible.
It's
a swamp.
it's a pit. It's and not the fun kind
Not the
that we
good
have
thing.
here on the podcast. It's just like the 12th circle of hell. Like it's not good anymore. The only people sticking around on Twitter these days either have to be there for work and hate it there, or they're people who are look around, see the chaos unfolding, are like, yeah, I want to be a part of this, and I'll pay $8 to do it too. And I'm like, what? That's
I'll pay $8 for this amusement park ride.
yeah. It's the self-selecting process of like the
It's
only people who
also,
stick around are the people who like that terribleness that
remember-
happens there.
From the very start, when they revealed this game, everyone said this is Pokemon with guns, and they'd never really did anything to detract from that narrative. Because yes, it
No,
is.
because it was a great narrative for them.
So own it, like Eric says. I mean,
Just
it does
own it,
play
yeah.
differently. It's a different kind of game, but it's just, it came across as very cynical to me, which is why I didn't really get into it.
As an example of the saltiness over media coverage, they called their Palworld entertainment deal, quote, one of the most misreported media deals in history or business deals in history.
Wow.
And said
Little
what it
self-important.
amounted to was, quote, we wanted to make merch and we didn't know how to make merch, so we struck a deal to make some merch. And I said, oh, interesting. So that was the tenor, I think, of the talk.
They're very angry. They want to fight.
Anyway,
Tucker wants to fight.
I got a byline in PC Gamer because he talked very briefly about the Nintendo lawsuit, which amounted to, yeah, we were pretty shocked and also sad when it happened. And then we talked to our lawyers. Also, we can't really talk about it that much. And then
Pikachu shocked face.
yeah, it was definitely you could boil it down to Pikachu shocked face with the Nintendo lawsuit.
You were just a little guy. It was our birthday.
So yeah, GDC, a lot of fun. Went to a bunch of good talks, vibed with a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to next year. But before we move on, the end of the episode, I do want to talk very briefly about this rumors of a Persona 4 remake. And the reason that these rumors have popped up is that a new domain registration has appeared that seems to suggest that a Persona 4 remake is on the horizon following the success of a Persona 3 reload. And the question is, what would we want from a potential Persona 4 remake? What do you think, Nadia?
It's a good question. Like, they have a lot of problematic content to wring out of that one if they're gonna,
Problematic.
for lack of a better term. Or,
Well, at a minimum, I'd like them to re-examine Kanji's dungeon. And I was
Exactly,
not saying
yeah.
like rip out the dungeon,
no,
but
nothing like that.
think about the tone. I mean, it was on the one hand, it was the exploration of toxic masculinity, but also there was this heavy dose of gay panic to it.
It was
Unfortunately,
totally it was unfortunate because yes, I honestly thought that okay, Kanji is gay and he can't deal with it, and that would have been kind of interesting. But because I mean, he is a guy who I also like the idea of a guy who's like, you know, maybe he's a tough guy and he likes to sew, but he's not necessarily gay. But they didn't really go either way with that. They just kind of made it a big joke about bathhouses.
yeah.
Which is a shame.
And Naoto's dungeon, not a big fan of that one. And the handling of Naoto in general, it's hard to get a handle on that particular character. So I do think that it's challenging to do a remake on that, and I would be genuinely curious to see if they would reconsider some of that stuff they did in Persona 3. because there was a trans panic moment that they completely changed, and I was honestly kind of grateful for that. So
I think
was,
it's. I was just gonna say, I think it's easier to change one dialogue in one scene
Yes.
than it is to like root out the dungeons. I don't think that's
yeah,
a
this
reason
stuff
for them
is really
not to try
embedded
it,
in Persona
but,
4. Is the
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
It's-
because I mean, Naoto is a character. That's a whole thing. If you want to talk about a character that was badly handled, but I always consider them genderqueer, and that was the whole explanation there. But we all know how it was handled. So fun fact, I actually did that dungeon while standing in line for the Switch.
Really?
Yeah, I brought my. Thankfully, it was indoor waiting
On the
so I
Vita. You brought a
on the Vita,
Vita
yeah.
to a
brought a
Switch
Vita
launch?
to the Switch
I brought a Vita
launch.
to like a
Brought-
terrible lump of garlic to a vampire convention or something. Yeah, I brought a Vita.
Talking about some of the better parts of Persona 4, I have such mixed feelings about this game because I do love
yeah,
the
same.
vibes of it, actually.
I love the music. It's probably my favorite Persona.
Incredible setting. A little Twin Peaks-ish, if I do say so myself.
I dated Marie.
I like the is it what's the name of the
Junes.
Walmart? Junes.
Every day is
I was thinking
great.
Juno, Junon.
Junes.
There's plenty of material to kind of explore with Junes. I think that Persona 4 would be interesting through a modern lens because there's been a lot of water under the bridge in the last 17 years, and this is a game that had, I think, much sharper social commentary, or wanted to have much sharper social commentary than Persona 3 in many ways. So maybe it's a great opportunity to re-examine that social commentary. I think there's plenty to do with the battle system. I thought P4 Golden did a really good job of enhancing it, but Persona 3 Reload went to another level. So
Yeah, I would like to see
yeah.
that.
Were
Also more
the
GA.
dungeons? Were the dungeons
Are
still
you gonna
proc
break our heart?
gen at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that may not hold up super well because I think
The
in P-
dungeons.
Yeah.
The way that they
Alright.
did the dungeon structure, I thought was not as good as Persona 3.
I didn't like the
and-
I didn't like the battles so much
because
before.
P3 you had
well,
it
they're
kind of
very
sequestered
simple
off,
for one
right?
thing. Yeah.
It was in the Tartarus, and so like you were only really doing it there, and the idea of like the tower being kind of shifting and stuff like that made sense. But I think having that in a story quote unquote dungeon is kind of a different scenario that ends up feeling a bit stranger.
I would
There
like
was
to
a
see
flo-
totally revised dungeons.
There was a flow to Persona 3's dungeons where it would be like you'd be in the Tartarus and you'd be exploring, you'd get to the top, and then you would do a full moon event. And whereas in Persona 4 it was shotgun ult the entire dungeon in one night so that I can get on to the social stuff. And they clearly were aware of this as a thing in Persona 5 and kind of tried to gate progress so you weren't shotgunning it all in one night. But Persona 4, you definitely did that. And the
P5
dungeons
you still did
themselves
too.
were very simple, actually, as I recall.
Very.
So
Yeah,
I think there's plenty to revisit with this game.
I do think P4 is the one that could most use an update, but also would be the most difficult to update.
Oh my God.
Like compared to other games where it's like, oh, we gave it a nice makeover, or we really thought the kitchen in this house would just benefit from some better appliances. But this one, you're like tearing out the drywall, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, the wiring's
be
just shot
just-
to shit.
you got to call a
I'm
plumber.
already wincing thinking about all the culture war stuff that would emerge
Yeah,
from trying to remake this game. I almost want to like leave well enough alone, but I guess we'll see. There's so much that I really do love about Persona 4, starting with Chie and Yukiko's friendship. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful friendship.
My roommates.
Yeah,
I do like the
It's-
characters of P4 a lot.
Yeah, they're
yeah.
fun.
And the murder mystery thing is like that was a really novel
Scooby-Doo.
thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the moment where
Great
you have
reveal.
to the moment where you have
Yeah.
to solve it is such a good
Yeah.
interest. And then like when it goes a little bit further for that final ending, and it was really the one moment where it's like, oh, I didn't know RPGs could do this. That's interesting. And you had to really kind of think about it. I know it kind of falls apart if you just know the answer, and that's where it does kind of stumble a little bit. This is weird. I watched the animation. I did not play Persona 4. I watched the anime for it, which drives some people up the wall when I tell them that. It's a good anime, though. I think it's a good time. But that was the moment where I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm ever going to actually play P4 because I feel like the big thing is that, and it did kind of bum me out, but I also loved just the vibe of it, just the idea of that concept. I'm not going to play Golden. Don't tell me to play Golden, chat. I'm still trying to finish Reload.
I will eventually, but most of my experience with the cast of Persona 4 is through Persona Q.
Nice.
Which I want to get ported to modern consoles more
I
than
would
I
play
want
that.
a remake of Persona 4.
Yes,
I would love Persona Q to get ported. Those games were very underrated for their time.
Dancing all night long.
I agree.
Yeah.
Shadow of the Labyrinth.
They're incredible.
Well, we'll see. I would not be shocked at all. Persona 3 Reload did very well, and we're just seeing over and over again that the Persona games, and now Metaphor, which I would connect to the Persona games, have a growing and growing fan base and are consistently very successful and kind of beat expectations each time. Single player games aren't dead. What a shock.
Oh my
Who would have
God.
thought? We'll talk a little bit about the best year for video games is whatever year it was when we were 12 in the post show. I think that'd be a lot of fun because we're running out of time. But Nadia, take us home.
This is something I got. I think I told you this story, Kat, a long, long time ago, but Eric wasn't here, and Victor definitely wasn't here, so I just kind of want to go over it again because I see it.
Pre-Victor, pre-Eric.
This is almost lore. This is old lore. This is like still 4K in my head, before 4K was even invented. So in grade 5, I was at maybe 10 or 11, we took a field trip down to a place in Toronto called Sunnybrook Park. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Victor?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very big, very nice park. It's where rich people put their horses. So we would go there, have a day and, playing around and, just watching horses poop, whatever it is. And this particular day that we went, there was some kind of promotion for Duracell batteries. And it included a mascot dressed up as a Duracell battery. And so I'm kind of doing my thing, enjoying myself, and then I hear at some point behind me two girls saying 1, 2, 3, and I turn around just in time to see them push the Duracell battery mascot, who goes pinwheeling across the green with his arms like wind. He's staggering. And he didn't fall. But what makes this so much better is that my grade 5 teacher was weird. And he caught the girls who did. There were a couple of friends of mine. One of them, her father got fired for taking my father's leads. That didn't work. That's a whole other thing. But they were there, getting scolded by the teacher because they did it in bright daylight under God's eyes and all of that. And he says to these girls, I want you to apologize to the nice battery. And my problem is that
I'm sorry, Duracell.
I saw this happen, number one, so I'm already stunned that I witnessed something so incredible. And then to hear that, instead of oh, go back to the bus, or I'm calling your parents, apologize to the nice battery. And they're sorry, Mr. Duracell battery. And there's some moments in my mind that I can still see just as bright as day, look at this photograph kind of shit. And that was one of them. Just that image of the Duracell batteries with arms pinwheeling.
There's a Like a Dragon dev listening to this right now that's just furiously taking notes yes, Duracell boss.
Duracell boss.
Sure. This is in the upcoming soon to be indie hit Promise mascot agency from the makers of Paradise Killer.
Yes.
That would be a pretty good that would be a good side quest though. It's you get caught trying to push over a mascot. What do? Do you apologize or do you just really go for it and kick their ass?
You do the FF7 Rebirth staggered, but it's the Duracell battery falling over, arms flailing.
Stop! He's
They all
already
jump on
dead.
him. The music just goes fucking wild.
Disturbing the peace.
As someone who has done a lot of mascot work, I cannot sign off on this bit.
They wanted me to do mascot work at Canada's Wonderland because I'm small, so like they can really fit in like SpongeBob or whatever. I should have. I didn't though. All the mascot people were weird. They had their break place beside ours, and they were just like bouncing off the walls and shit. While we were just like slumming it, playing Pokemon over by the supply barn and throwing tampons on the roof instead of like working.
Bonus, Nadia. It makes me think of the bit in Squid Game season 2 with the mascots. Actually,
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, you should. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for this week's episode of Axel Plug. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for supporting the pod. As a reminder, patreon.com/plugupod. You can get the show ad-free, join our Discord, play Cyberpunk 2077 with us, listen to our recent PlayStation 5 draft side quest, hang out with us while we're watching Freerun. Lots of exciting content over on the Discord. Buy merch at shop.blugupod.com. If you're a Star of Destiny, you get a 20% off discount. Wow, amazing. We are now heading into the post show. We'll talk a little bit about the best year ever for video games, whatever year it was when we were 12. I think the year I was 12 has a strong case, but I'm looking at Eric and Victor's. It's like pretty good. So
I'm a year or two off, but I'll get into that.
I don't know. I want to hear your case for 93.
Okay, good.
That'd be good. Yeah. All right. We'll be back next week. I've been your host, Kat Bailey, and for Nadia, Eric, Victor, and myself, thanks for listening. Happy adventuring.